There's a huge amount of discussion on the importance of Zone 2 training on the internet right now, and I've focused heavily on it right here on the channel. And you may have heard the phrase go slow to go fast, but what does that actually mean? Well, your aerobic capacity underpins all fitness. It's the foundation from which you can work hard from. So once you've developed your aerobic capacity, that allows you to do the harder stuff, build your work capacity to be able to do more of it, accumulate more volume, and get faster over time. I have a very aerobically underpinned hard effort session to get through today that I'm going to take you along for the ride for. But most importantly, we're going to break down the secrets as to how you can improve your fitness and break those running PBs. And we do have some big efforts today. We've got a 2K warm-up at Zone 2 pacing into a 5x5 kilometer with 1K rolling recovery between sets. So it's a big old session. All of my 5Ks I'm aiming to do in the 21 minute to 21-20 second time range. So around 4:15 per kilometer pace. 1K easy recovery, rolling between reps so that I can just keep my legs turning over and develop that ability to sustain and return to threshold pacing over time. The intention of this session is to develop and repeatedly increase my ability to tolerate volume at a higher pace so that I can then piece that together when it matters in a half marathon or marathon time trial, which I have coming up very soon. And if all of these 5Ks are comfortable and I've got something left in my legs to go hard in the 5th and final rep, that will be very encouraging. So I think I'm probably done stalling and it's time to start warming up.
So what are training zones? In order to specify exactly how hard to train in a sport, you can break your efforts into levels or zones ranging from extremely easy to extremely difficult. Many zone systems exist. We're going to focus on lactate heart rate threshold today, but what pretty much all of them have in common is that they pick a parameter like heart rate, power or pace and use it to describe varying degrees of workout intensity as a percentage of a threshold. For running, the place that most people start is with 220 minus age, but this is as likely to be wrong as it is right, as it's not working to your individual data. So I'm a huge fan of lactate heart rate threshold testing, LTHR. To find your lactate heart rate threshold, you should do a 30-minute time trial by yourself, no training partners and not in a race. And again, it should be done as if it was a race for the entire 30 minutes. At 10 minutes into the test, you want to click the lat button on your heart rate monitor. When done, you want to see what your average heart rate was for the last 20 minutes. And that number is an approximation of your lactate heart rate threshold and your lactate heart rate threshold pacing. From here, you can use this information to set zones based on what's on screen just now, and today's session for me is going to be focused all around work around the Zone 3, Zone 4 range. And a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is really in reference to Zone 3 and Zone 4 work, underpinned by a foundation of Zone 2 work. It's important to mention that tempo, sub-threshold or threshold work, Zone 3, Zone 4, generally speaking, doesn't always need to be done in an interval format. However, it can be a very beneficial way of easing yourself in and building your tolerance so that you can then do steadier, sustained periods at this effort level. Any questions on anything I've mentioned just here, please do drop them in the comments down below. And if you're looking to get more of an understanding in general terms on heart rate zones and the Zone 2 foundation that I referred to, head to the video that's on the screen just now.
(21:05) first rep, smooth, but definitely feeling fatigue in my legs. I can feel it's fatigue and cumulative fatigue more than ability, which is encouraging, but it means the rest of this session is going to be tough. Okay. Lap 2, 21:10, really feeling fatigue and heat here. So this is going to be tough to hold the pace on, but ultimately that's what these sessions are for, is building that pace, building that resilience and trying to fight through it. So I'm going to recover here and see you at the end of lap 3. Oh. Right, I don't actually know the time on that one because my watch has died. So it died midway through, start lap 3, so that's lap 3 in what is feeling tough, so I'm going to assume around the same sort of ballpark. Sun's gone away a little bit, so I'm a little bit chillier now, which is good because the heat was definitely starting to get to me. I'm going to take this 1K recovery, I'm probably going to get a gel on board at this point and then hit rep number 4, but this is definitely feeling tough today. Cumulative fatigue is high. Ouch.
Big sessions like this one can take a huge toll on your body, so it's important to make sensible decisions around your recovery, which I like to track through this device right here, which never leaves my wrist and is constantly sending information to this slightly larger device in my hand right here. There's 3 things that I focused on over the weekend to optimize my recovery before a big 30-kilometer long run on the Sunday after this session that you're seeing. And that's to make sure that I could get the most out of my training and turn up to it in as good a condition as possible. Number 1, sleep. I woke up on Sunday morning to a 68% recovery score and a longer sleep notification on Whoop, which is very, very encouraging. after an early night the night before. Something you're in control with and something that you can do to optimize your recovery around big back-to-back sessions. Secondly, I had a nutritionally dense meal focused on micronutrition and some good quality macronutrition to make sure that I'm refueling and fueling well for the session that comes. And I also like to track how close to bedtime that was in the check-in feature on Whoop as well. Thirdly, I opted for a non-alcoholic beer rather than the alcoholic one, even though it was a Saturday night. And again, something that I track on a regular daily basis through the check-in feature on Whoop is, did I have any alcohol the night before, so that I can map out the results of that in terms of my recovery and sleep score over time to see what habits and lifestyle choices have an impact on my recovery and therefore training, performance, cognitive ability, etc., etc. So those are the three things that I focused on to make the most of my big running weekend. And if you'd like to have access to data from your wrist coming straight to your phone for you to then unpack and take action, most importantly, this thing isn't gospel, but it will help you have the information to then take action, then make sure to use the link in the description down below to get your first month free. Anyway, back to the track.
What was that?
21:28.
21:28. Getting tough now. I'm struggling to hold pace, legs feel heavy. I'm a little bit pissed off that I don't have data anymore. I know exactly what's happened. We've got USB plugs in the kitchen. I'll put a clip of them on the screen. And I've just probably realised that I plugged the USB cord in this morning to charge my Garmin. And I've made this mistake a few times in the past. You then need to turn it on at the wall. It's not just like a hotel where you plug it in and go from there. It's what I get for charging my kit at home rather than the office. I'm out of practice. Anyway, recovery feels quite good at the moment. I feel in quite a good place. But yeah, 21:28, pace has dropped off a little bit where I wanted it to be, and it's feeling quite tough. So I'm gonna make sure to get a decent amount of water and some more carbs on board. I'll see you at the end of round 5 for a debrief and some points on the importance and how you can implement tempo/sub-threshold stuff. Okay, got my breath back. I'm gonna do my 1K recovery and 2K cool down afterwards. No data anyway, so the file's already ruined. Sometimes when Garmin dies, it also saves where it got up to Swift. So here is the data. If not, there was nothing there. But 21:30 for the last lap according to Elliot, which I guess is quite positive given I didn't have data to track, but I definitely didn't have any more in my legs for that last rep. Lots of fatigue, legs feeling heavy, quite symptomatic of marathon prep in many ways really. I've got a list run tomorrow. I think it's 10 miles at real easy zone 2 pacing. That'll flush my legs out a little bit, and then back at the track on Monday before a big week. So we'll see how I get on. Anyway, that's how the session went for me. I think the most important thing to consider if you're looking to work in some tempo and sub-threshold stuff is to have a really solid aerobic base. Make sure that you've got a good understanding of your zones, and make sure that you've got a goal to work towards, because at the end of the day, if you're going to be building volume and building distance and building time in a zone towards something, it's easiest to have some parameters for you to work within. I wouldn't be doing big volume sessions like today if I wasn't as close to a marathon as I was. If I was just training for a half marathon and I was 6, 8, 10 weeks out, then things would be a little bit different. But that's where I am today. Not really much let up in the past couple of weeks now that I'm sort of fully recovered from injury and can really build my volume again. It's been the worst possible marathon prep that I could have ever had, but here we are. So now that my breath's fully back, I think summary of the first thing to really consider is to just set clear goals for you to work within, so that the zone training that you're doing, when you work in tempo, when you work in sub-threshold, when you work in threshold work, it has a purpose, and you're not just getting out there bursting yourself because of point number 2, which is that this sort of training will accumulate a lot more fatigue than easier running, which is why you might have heard of something like the 80-20 rule, where 80% of your running should be done easily, 20% of your running should be done hard, which is quite difficult to track in terms of metrics. But the premise is quite simple, which is the vast majority of your training should be aerobic, zone 2, zone 1, and then some of your training should be done with intent, with purpose, within parameters, towards a clear goal, hard. And that's what today's been for me. Been a lot of volume in a sort of harder zone, and that's because I'm coming towards the end of a prep, so I'm maybe a little bit more 70-30, but that's just specificity kicking in, and I'm kind of playing a little bit of catch up off the back of a calf injury, hip injury, and just the worst summer of prep and training I've probably ever had. So account for the fact that fatigue is going to be high. Bear that in mind and make sure that you're not overdoing it, doing 3-4 sessions like this every week. Otherwise you'll probably snap something, and that's definitely going to stop your progress. So the third piece of advice to consider if you're looking to build in some more sustained, pacier stuff is to cautiously and steadily build your volume. Like the second point, essentially you want to take things cautiously. You don't want to be too aggressive. Because this is such a high fatigue activity, it's high demand, you don't want to ramp things up too quickly because it's going to piss your body off and potentially hurt you. So general recommendation is to build your overall volume by about 10% each week, and some of that should be incrementally building your volume when it comes to the pacier, tempo, sub-threshold stuff as well. And a bit of a bonus point, number 4, is make sure to A, charge your watch, or B, if you have USB plugs in your house, to turn them on at the wall. That is today's training session. That is today's video. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have done, please make sure to hit the like button. Please make sure to hit subscribe and ding that little bell so that you don't miss any future videos. And if you'd be so kind as to share any insights that you have in the comments down below so that others can gather any more advice that is relevant to improve their tempo / sub-threshold / threshold capability for sustained marathon, half marathon, 10K, 5K performances, that would be massively appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.